Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Barry Ramey, and I'm a co-founder of WeTheJ6ers.com. We are a website and an operation that is putting forth the men and women that were pardoned by President Donald Trump and his current administration to tell their side of the story of what they were subjected to during their prosecution, their sentencing, their trials, and even while in prison. Today's guest that we have is also a member and speaker for WeTheJ6ers.com and has a lot going on in his own world. A lot of people know him as Enrique Tarrio. Some people know him as the black face of white supremacy. Some know him as the national chairman of the Proud Boys, former. And I've come to know him as a good person and fellow J6er and fellow inmate. Um, Enrique Tarrio, how are you doing today, brother?
Well, thank you for having me on, man. And former inmate. That sounds.
It does. It sounds a little. It sounds a little. Institutionalized. The language of the institutionalized.
I do like former though. That's the best part about it.
Yeah.
It's former because of all the crap that we went through, and to get pardoned. And in this case, it was pretty much because we were innocent. We were pardoned because we were innocent, not because we did anything wrong. So I'm really happy about the former part.
Yeah. It's every couple days I have to stop and think to myself, man, I have a United States presidential pardon from my generation's clearest, greatest president.
I'd go
Maybe
beyond
even.
and say more than just your generation.
Yeah.
I'd say many, many, many generations
Oh yeah.
greatest
Oh yeah.
president.
I mean, one of the greatest of all times. I mean, and I only say that because I humbly respect, the Jeffersons, the Washingtons, the Lincolns, but
Nobody ever
man,
says the Adams.
no, yeah. Well, I got a quote from him on my tattooed on my arm,
Yeah.
so I have a lot of respect for that guy. Um, so let's get into the brass tacks of everything. You were sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for a situation that happened at a location that you weren't even at that day. I think most of the people are now finally getting to know those details and hear that story, but they really don't know what the magnitude of what the U.S. government tried to pull in order to get you to elicit a false testimony that would implicate Donald Trump in a crime that he had nothing to do with. And you going to prison for 22 years meant nothing to them. They had no problem with that. But had you have cooperated with them, gave them gave a jury their story that they created on behalf of them, they would have let you go. They would have just washed us clean and let you go home. Instead, you got 22 years. What what does that look like for you now? What is your mission and goal in life to expose, talk about? Are you out for revenge, redemption, or what? Or moving forward, what does that look like for you, Enrique Tarrio?
Well, looking back, I think also what's important to note about these cases, right? And I said this when they started arresting people. I said that there's tiers, right? That they're going to go after people in tiers, and the eventual goal is to capture the president. That was the game. That's the name of the game. You take your opponent's pieces off the board, and then you got to take the king and the queen piece. Well, in chess, you go for the king, right? And the game ends, which is the ultimate goal. And I think that what happens, I said to myself, I said that if they pick up Stuart Rhodes, which at the time I didn't know he was on Capitol grounds, but I always said if they capture Stuart Rhodes, they're like a hop skip away from picking me up. And if they pick me up, there is no hop skip. They can get to the president easily because of the facts of the case, right? I wasn't there. Did I celebrate it? Yes. And if they were able to capture me, they'd capture the president because they'd set that precedent. Um, and that's exactly how they attempted to do it. They attempted to do it to me. Now looking forward, I think I am focused on retribution and retaliation. What does that look like? Retribution and retaliation for me means accountability, because these people have to be held accountable, um, in order to make it stop. I just tweeted this just about like 15 minutes ago. We are going to regret not putting away those people that weaponize our justice system. Mark my words that if we do not do that, On January 20th of 2029, they will start putting us back in chains if we don't do that. So yeah, my focus, yes, is putting on advocating, because obviously I have no power to arrest anybody. Although people love to say on Twitter that I'm running ICE or something, which would be great. But that accountability needs to come, and it needs to come fast, because we're going to be targets again. Let's be honest, we're going to be targets again, and that is something that a lot of people aren't going to be able to live with.
Do you think that we becoming targets again? Do you think the scope is going to be broad as all J6ers, or you think they're going to be focusing on quote unquote the top players, the seditious five, or do you think that they're going to go after all of the J6ers again?
I think no, I don't think this has anything to do with J6ers or the my five, us five. I think they're gonna expand it because the precedent is already set.
Sure.
Right? They know that you could be locked up for anything, and this has to do with all Americans, right? Like, if you're a Trump supporter, you're gonna get targeted, you're gonna go to prison, and I could guarantee you, with 100% certainty, that if they steal the election in 2028, they will put Donald Trump in chains. They will 100% put him in chains, and we're next. They're not going to do the opposite. They're not going to start with Trump supporters and then work their way up. They're going to lock him up first, so then he won't have a voice, and then they're going to start locking up everybody down the line. And I think that line is it's huge, right? So people just watching this, I think they are in danger. And it's not like I hate fear mongering, right?
Sure.
And this isn't fear mongering. It's gonna happen. We saw it happen.
They've already done it. They've already put the precursors out there and postured and showed their cards what they're capable and willing to do.
Yeah.
We know. It's not an enlightening experience anymore. We have been shown what they intend to do. And it's why I say it's very important, these midterms, that we have to have this same energy from November 5th into these midterms and primaries, or this America First agenda is done. It's over. Well, so let me ask you this. Let's talk about that time. You're in your lawyer's office. I believe you were in your attorney's office, and some prosecutors from the district attorney of DC. No,
so I was already in prison. And
you were already in custody.
I was in custody.
Okay.
And it was about 3 months before we had to go to trial, because I had trial posture from the beginning. From the day that I got arrested, I already knew I had to go to trial. The attorneys we got were trial attorneys. We weren't looking for just like your regular run of the mill attorneys. We're looking for the best attorneys that we can find in the Miami or DC area that can best fight this case. So they had our trial was scheduled for December, and I believe this came in like October or late September, where they sat me down in a room and basically passed a sheet of paper across, and he's like, basically, we know the truth. This is the truth, and if you attest to this, you won't spend another day in jail. Right? We'll schedule you for a bond hearing, which would come in the following week, and then after that, then we'd sentence you, but you wouldn't do any prison time. And I read the paper, and it's completely fabricated story. It's nothing from the truth. I wish I had access to the president, how they made it seem. I wish, like, I think everybody wishes they had the access to the president, but what they wanted me to do was they wanted me to connect the president to what happened on the ground that day on January 6th. A lot of people don't know this. So when Donald Trump was indicted in DC for what they call the January 6th case, it really wasn't a January 6th case. It was a case about it had to do with him allegedly manipulating the paperwork and manipulating people into saying that the election was stolen, which it was. But it didn't have any mention. If you read the indictment, it had nothing to do with what happened on the ground on January 6th that day. So the only connection that he would have is obviously the leader of the Proud Boys, which is part of the big sedition trial that they had that was about to come up. So what they were looking for is to indict the president on what happened on the ground on January 6th, because he was never indicted for that. A lot of people confuse, they call it the January 6th case, but it's not really the January 6th case.
Well, that's pretty telling. Let me ask you this: do you think that if you had gone along with their scam, do you think that what you would have they would have still persecuted the other four? Pizzola, Biggs, Nordine. Um,
Absolutely.
they would have still prosecuted them, let you go on this lie, tied them to this lie,
Yes.
and it just
Yeah.
threw them under the prison because that's
Yeah.
where they were trying to
It,
put them.
and it would, because it would require me testifying. Forget about the against my brothers. It would require me to testify in court against the president of the United States to something that is a lie.
Hmm.
Right? They wanted me to lie in order to capture the president. The justice system, we were taught to believe that the justice system is this equal. They got the statue of the lady with the scale, and it's supposed to be equal. It's not. It's about prosecuting, period. And in
Yeah,
this case, it wasn't just about prosecuting, it was about sending a message, right? A message that they were going to legislatively force the end of MAGA. That's what they wanted. They wanted
oh,
people afraid, and you could still feel the effects of it, right? Because like some people, like even my guys don't want to like go out and do what they did before, even though they want to, but they know that there's a risk that the federal government will get weaponized against them when Trump's out of office. you
sure.
know and you see it in a lot of the guys, and it's a sad reality, and it's not just the guys, it's just like Trump supporters in general. We had this energy um through that time that a lot of people didn't see, but we were able to put boots on the ground. Like Trump supporters were able to like mobilize at a moment's notice. After January 6th, you didn't see that. You didn't
Sure.
see that. And look, I'll tell you, some of the coolest things that I've witnessed during the Trump administration was like the 4th of July rally at the Independence Day rally in DC, right? It was really fun. It was a great time. The jets flew over, they had fireworks. It was a really cool display. And if Trump were to say, "Hey, come to DC for a 4th of July celebration," I think the fear of DC. Not only do you get stabbed in DC, and DC is one of the most dangerous uh, cities in the country. I don't think that you'll get that energy because people are afraid. They're afraid of what's going to happen. I'm not afraid. If Trump says, "Hey, come to DC on July 4th," I'm in. I'm super in. So
This
um,
this part we know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm actually
So
going to go over there on Wednesday, so 2 days from
yeah,
now. Yeah,
you hear that, Antifa? He's gonna be there. So
they won't
yeah.
see me.
Yeah.
It's more of a private affair.
I was talking with I believe it was Shane Jenkins the other day, and I met a guy in prison who could pass as your stunt double. He was a Puerto Rican dude from New York. The only problem, they called him Gucci. It was a New York Puerto Rican drug dealer gangster dude, but he was super cool, big time Trump supporter. And like, if I put sunglasses and a hat on this guy, and we put you and you walked out and went one way, and this guy went the other way in a Perry and a hat, I'm telling you, everyone would follow this guy. I told him that. I'm like, man, we could use you as a paid stunt double. He's like, man, what you mean, bro? I'm not trying to get shot up in here. I'm like, well, that's the point of a stunt double. That's part of the job. I'm gonna need you to
Yeah.
want to get shot, but it could have happened. It was so great. Um,
Did you ever
let
find somebody in prison that was a Biden supporter? Because I sure as
I
fuck did it.
I did. I did. They
Did
were few and far between, and they were always, and I'm not saying this to be, hyperbolic or facetious or because I'm clearly biased. They were always usually child molesters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you figure the party trying to sexualize children, they'd be a fan of. Go figure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite surreal for me seeing all of the and I when I because there was a lot of black dudes in prison that did not deserve to be in prison. Okay, but there was some on is in every demographic that were hardened criminals, and we grow up in a world where 80-90% of the black American population votes Democrat, so we carry that that persona into every situation we see. And you didn't find that in prison, Enrique. You didn't find that. Some of the
Yeah.
biggest, toughest black gangsters in there were staunch conservatives,
Yeah.
understood what Trump was going through and supported him.
Yeah. Of
And they
course.
had been in prison. They've been in prison 15, 20 years. Some of them. They haven't been involved in American politics
Yeah.
other than vicariously living it through newspapers.
Yeah. No, of course.
It was unbelievable.
And I wouldn't, if I would have taken that deal, I wouldn't have met some of those people because I would have been home.
Yeah.
I would have only,
Yeah.
I think at that point, I would have only served like, I think it was like 7 months or something like that if I would have taken that deal.
Hmm.
Um, which a lot of people, there's no such thing as short time. So even like some of these J6ers that only did like 15 days, 30 days, or only got house arrest, there's no
Yeah.
such thing as short time.
Especially
So
from the walks of life they came through, hockey moms, soccer moms,
yeah, of
like
course.
they were. This is an one day is an eternity. It's like when you walk out the door on your dog for an hour or two. For him, it was a whole 2 years. It doesn't have a concept of time.
Yeah, of
You
course.
know, when you grow up in that environment as a suburban housewife, and you're going to prison for 30 days, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think I think I'm happy the way that things have turned out. Looking back, it sucks that I lost 3 years of my life, and a lot of people lost 4 years. Like my
Hmm.
my 4 guys, they lost 4 years of their life
Yeah.
because they got picked up real early. But now that I see it, it was fully worth it because um Biden needed to take power. Biden needed to take power, and America needed to go through those 4 years of hell, and we needed to go through those 4 years of hell because it showed us. You got me. It
Yeah.
was eye opening for a lot of people. So I think that that I don't regret it.
Yeah. I mean, on a personal level, I can definitely say the experience in its entirety made me a better man for sure. I'm not going to argue with that, and it's my own personal thing. I like that a lot of what I witnessed was a lot of men bettering themselves through the process. So
Yeah.
you know, it was a good thing. That brings me to my next question. Um, I've only known you for a couple years now, and a lot of that time we were, in different prisons and passing each other through prisons and stuff in our process before trial and during trial. And between the Proud Boy chats, what happens online, your daily life, people call you some very bad things
Oh,
nonstop,
it's
and
great.
you tend to just brush it aside, and every day you keep
Or
being
use it.
Enrique Tarrio. Yeah, yeah, you do a good job at that. But every day you're still you. You still get up and do what's important to you. And anyone that, in my personal opinion, anyone that spends significant amount of time around you, no matter what they believe about you, whether it's whether if they agree with your side of the political spectrum or not, one thing they can't deny is that you love this country, you are a capitalist, you love the Constitution, and you understand it. So what do you say to these people every day that have something negative to say about Enrique Tarrio, that don't even know you, never got a chance to talk to you? What do you say to them every day that find a way to hate you and characterize who they think you are online? What do you say to those people?
I'd ask them to keep doing it. Honestly, like I think that the reason, I don't say I'm not like a fucking scholar, I'm not a person that like sits there and reads about it's just basic common sense. So I'm not this like this person that says like these different things than so many other people say, right? The reason why I've been given this giant bullhorn is because of people like that. Mainly because of people like that. So because they like if your first interaction that has to do with Enrique Tarrio is listening to somebody talk about him. You're like, oh, wow, this guy's horrible. This guy's a demon or whatever. And then one day you come across, like, I don't know, like this podcast, right? Or this interview. Um, and you're like, wait a second, this guy doesn't sound like the dude uh that they're talking about. Let me see what he has to say. And then boom, I gain a follower. Boom, I gain a follower. And throughout the years, I'm also not new to this. Like, I didn't get activated because of Trump in 2016. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've actually been doing it for, right now, it's going to be 21 years. Okay. That I've been active in politics, and I was raised very political by a very political family. So, like, you can't change my mind on something. I can, I can, I could debate somebody on their views, and I could understand where they're coming from. And I'm very nice to people that disagree with me. Um, but one thing I'm not, like, I've never been accused of, is having left some type of left wing view, some type of anti-American view. I've never had those. You can call me whatever you want. I'm an asshole. I'm rough around the edges. I cuss like a motherfucker, which I tried not to do on this podcast in the beginning, but that went out the window.
Yeah, well, I
But
mean, I don't give a flying fuck.
yeah,
So
I know. But so again, it's not that I say something different than a lot of people, because I do see, like, a lot of, like, researchers and people that, like, um they're really into, like, political sciences or whatever. um and to me, it's just basic common sense. Is this right, or is this wrong? Is it constitutional, or is it not constitutional? I don't need to type you a fucking thesis on, like, gun laws. Like, I don't have to be a lawyer to tell you, the Constitution tells you shall not be infringed. you know um so to those people that, like, continuously, like, call me names, like the other day I got called a human trafficker, which is a first. um because
what
I
was the
caught
context for that?
because in 2013, and I get called a fed for this, which is fine. I did catch a sex trafficking ring that was ran by a bunch of Mexican nationals, and they ran, like, different businesses, and they also ran a whorehouse, right, which would exchange women every week. you know um and they're like, well, how did you know about the sex trafficking ring? So that means you're a human trafficker yourself. No, I live in fucking Miami,
I guess would
right?
be
Like, you could throw a rock across the street and you can find sex trafficking, cocaine, whatever.
you just
And
go to a
again,
bar. Just go
it,
to a bar and sit there for 2 nights in a row, and the bartender is gonna come up to you and and,
yeah.
you
So
know
so in that context, like, again, I've never been called a human trafficker, but, like, it just adds to the list. And now it was a running joke on a Twitter Spaces the other day, where I'm like, yeah, now I'm a human trafficker. So I opened with, hey, my name's Enrique Tarrio, I'm a human trafficker. So, like, those things, like, I just take them kind of like the deplorables thing,
Yeah.
which they thought, they thought it was so brilliant, or the weird thing, or
Yeah.
Donald Trump is weird. They thought that was like an insult,
I
right?
mean,
Which is supposed to be.
just this sign alone, what, the Proud Boys were able to do with trolling people on that,
Yeah.
God.
And,
Uh,
like, we just take it upon ourselves. Now we put it on t-shirts, the deplorables. I was
yeah.
at Donald Trump's first. That's where I met the president the first time he signed my hat. Was It was 2 days after Hillary Clinton called Trump supporters a basket of deplorables, and he had this rally in Miami. And he had the big screen behind him with like, it said it in French, the deplorables. And he took it upon himself. He took it upon his supporters took it as theirs. So we started
Yeah.
calling each other deplorables. So that's kind of what I use. There's nothing that somebody could tell me, or something that somebody can call me, that can get me mad. It just
Yeah.
it just
I've
can't.
noticed this. I've definitely noticed this. Well, I like to call it, me and my attorney, we called it the 8 Mile effect. We knew what the FBI agent in my case was going to say. We knew what the prosecutor was going to say. So my lawyer just came out and said it all first to the judge in
Yeah.
my bench
Yes.
trial.
Yeah.
And like, it's the 8 Mile effect, like Eminem did in that famous battle at the end of the movie. Just say
Yeah,
what they're going to say, take their steam from them, and it is what it is. I think it's a brilliant way to go about life, honestly.
yeah, yeah. No,
What
and
would
it's go ahead.
you were moved, I believe 40 times.
40 exactly.
40 times, and that was a process that I've discussed a little bit, that I'd really, my passion for what I'm going forward for me personally as a J6er is to end the process known as diesel therapy. I believe it's cruel and unusual. I believe it's against the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. I believe it violates the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution, and I think that it's a waste of taxpayers' money, considering it costs $2,000 to $10,000 to transport each inmate each time. Now, you were moved 40 times. I have been looking secretly behind your back, um, for somebody in the federal system that has been moved more than that. Um, I have found people like Jimmy Hoffa, Frank the Irishman, another mobster guy, John Gotti. I've looked at some of the big names, of different federal inmates, and nobody comes close to 40.
Yeah.
So you might have a record. I'm looking to find and disprove it, but Enrique Tarrio might hold the record in the federal system of the most times moved and transported. What did that look like for you? Getting moved all those times. What did you go through with all
you
that?
you get used to the suck. So like the first couple times it sucked, right? And excuse me. And the perfect example of this was just like a couple months before the pardon. I had to go to DC to testify for the defense in Shane Lamont's trial. And I had to get moved around just to get to DC. And then when we got to DC that I finished testifying, I had to move back. Well, we picked up a whole busload full of J6ers that had just gotten like either remanded into custody, um, or they were just getting moved for the first time out of the DC jail. And what ended up happening is, like they were all waiting downstairs and everybody's putting their cuffs on, and they finally put the box cuffs on. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is horrible. It's a torture device." And like I was chilling, because this is like at this point, I think this was like movement number like 34 or 35. And to me, it was normal. So like they were all like, "Oh my God, this is horrendous." And I'm just sitting in the back, like just throwing pieces of bologna sandwich inside my mouth. And not pissing for 13 hours at a time. Um, so I could tell you it sucked, but it's crazy how easily you get like adapted to it. That's life.
Yeah, it's it is. I could speak for myself. Maybe I'm just a bitch, but 17.
No,
There was some of those
I was
bus
still
rides
fucked
were
up at
17
17.
hours.
I was still
What's that?
fucked up at number 17, the 17th move.
Oh yeah,
I was still fucked up. I was like, damn, this is fucked up.
yeah. I
You
was
start getting used to it on like the low
yeah,
20s is when you start like really
yeah.
like being like, all right, cool.
But like you said, you don't piss for 13 hours at a time because it's you're almost impossible for you to piss. You're still chained and shackled while the bus is moving. If you got to go and it's moving, the feces and the urine are just sloshing around back there. And
Yeah.
you do anything you can not to have to utilize that system. Your body almost naturally kicks in and just prevents you from having to go. But it's a terrible situation. They barely feed you, and again, the taxpayers are paying for this. They're
Yeah, no, it's really expensive. To move me, it's very expensive because they have like they could only get like certain contractors to move me around. And usually those are the expensive ones because of the way that they got to transfer me.
right.
Sometimes they had to put like an actual, um, like there's a car that's following you with like two dudes like fully armed with body armor and shit, because they
It's
thought like somehow somebody was gonna break me out, you know.
it's ridiculous. And
Um,
now, was that you or was that Joe that was on with the Ukrainian plane guy?
no, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's a Malaysian. No, I don't know what. I forgot what the plane is. It's a bomber, the shoe bomber.
Yeah,
No, that was we're in Alexandria. He was sitting there in Alexandria. Actually, I think you were in Alexandria while he was there.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was.
yeah.
And they actually treated you as a more of a security risk threat than that guy.
I'm
That
sorry,
is
I'm getting yawn spells.
it's all right. It's all right. You just got off a cruise, so you're
Yeah,
probably really sick.
I've spent more time sick than I was on the cruise, but regardless of the fact, yeah, this guy, like, they would let him off the bus first, and then they had to like unshackle him, put him in his cell, and then they had to do that because when I walked through the floor, they had to shut down like the whole floor in order to move me. So I was at a higher security level than somebody that like bombed a plane and like killed
That's
hundreds of people.
That's insane. And when if people really think about how dangerous that is, it wasn't because there was some kind of assessment put on you or the other guys that indicated that your behavior and documented behavior puts you at a greater threat level. No, that was because some administration didn't like your support for their political opponent and wanted to maximize the pressure put on you as an individual for it. And they were able to do that. And that's the scary part.
Yeah, it's a marketing campaign. Like you got to think of it as like a business transaction for them because it's at the end of the day that's what it is, right? They wanted to scare people, um, and they wanted to do it in the most public way possible. And they came and they indicted us wrongly. They put us through show trials. Um, they paraded us like they perp walked us, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what they did. They perp walked me.
Yeah.
The film crew that recorded my arrest was there 3 hours before the FBI was. Like they already had the tripod out.
If that doesn't tell people something, I don't know what would. That is so ominous. That there's communication between the mainstream media and the Department of Justice like that, because
Of
clearly
course.
that's what had happened.
Yeah, and they wanted to get it. They wanted to play that. Um, they wanted to play that on TV, um, which I use as an intro to my show, which is another example of me using
Yeah,
TV Limited.
to your point, I want to say thank you to Sedition Hunters for finding some really badass pictures of me.
Oh, bro, it looked
Um,
great. The people
so
with the most amazing pictures of my life is usually the left.
it's funny because there's a really scary picture of me that they used as far as news articles where I'm standing with a face mask and sunglasses and a hat and an AK-47, and I look like the leader of some backwoods militia. And that was for an
Oh,
independent film that never happened. I was a character. I was going to be a character in this film that got some funding, and the funding ran out, and the film never was. So that was what the picture was from. But of course, they used that as I'm some kind of fucking psycho nut with a gun leading a militia somewhere. And it's just, the media should never be an apparatus extension for the government.
you know what it is that they overplayed their hands. You know, like I said this on January 6th. I said this on the evening of January 6th. I'm like, look, if you put your hands on a cop, get charged with whatever that is. If you assaulted a police officer, get charged with whatever that is. If you
Mhm.
trespass, which there is some like dispute on whether that was trespassing or not. But like if he trespassed, whatever, I would have taken a trespassing charge. If I was there,
Sure.
obviously I would have taken a trespassing charge and been like, yeah, fuck you, I did it. That's it. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is that they overplayed their hand, they overcharged these cases, and they overmarketed these cases as being like sedition, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that wasn't the case. People weren't charged with trespassing. They were charged with a lot more. And if you fought the system, I'll give you the perfect. I think one of the uh, best examples of this is Brandon Fellows.
Yeah.
He got charged with a misdemeanor, and he
Mhm.
didn't play ball. He's like, no, fuck you. I'm not guilty of this, right? And they're like, well, if you don't take this plea deal, we're going to upgrade you to a felony. And they did. They upgraded
Yeah.
him to a felony when he could have taken a deal and he would have like gotten, I think, like probation. I forgot what his first like uh plea deal was. It was like
They
something
they
like
were going to let him out. They were going to let
yeah.
him out that
Mhm,
day.
mhm.
You
And
know,
he
hey,
didn't take it. He's like, fuck you. I didn't do this. And it takes balls. It takes ball. It takes
It
balls.
does.
And not to disparage anybody that didn't go to trial and took the plea deal, because they were actually, in part, they were kind of, in one
Smarter.
respect, they were kind of smarter, because they're
Yeah.
like, look, this is a clown show. Let me get as the least amount of possible, because there's no way I'm going to get a fair trial.
Sure.
But it does take a
Facts.
certain kind of balls, not more balls, but it takes a certain kind of balls to be like, no, fuck you, I didn't do anything wrong. Let's go to trial, motherfucker.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that
Especially
happened
after
in most of
seeing
these
the
cases.
results of a lot of the trials too.
Yeah. And I'm happy, because what it did is it cost them so much money, like to take to arrest J6ers. Like, I forgot what the ratio was. This is another thing that I would love to be able to show. Like, most people don't take shit to trial. When you get picked up by the feds, nobody takes it to trial. That's like the rule. And J6 was like, nah, fuck you, I'm taking it to trial. You know, and regardless, most of us lost. I think there was only one win. It was a bench trial. Um, and because it's not because they were guilty, it's because they didn't have a chance
Yeah.
with the DC jury. You don't have a chance with these DC judges. You don't have a chance. You don't stand a chance against them, and even against an unconstitutional law, the 1512. Right? These judges knew this was unconstitutional.
Hmm.
It wasn't like, and they still went ahead and they still found them guilty. And then the Supreme Court had to come in and say, no, fuck you, this is unconstitutional, so throw out all these cases. They
Yeah.
like
And they,
dismantled their
yeah.
entire, like, um uh their entire narrative was destroyed with the Supreme Court.
And then when they start dropping the 1512s with people that were pending trial, the judges were allowing the prosecution to supersede indicting them. It would give them new charges
Yeah,
years later, just like, all right, we're not, this isn't going to stick. Well, we'll throw this on you now.
these judges need to go to prison.
It's, in the beginning, Enrique, I was saying, I'm like, oh, that sounds a little harsh, but the more that and this thought has developed well over a year or so ago, but the more I look into it, you're absolutely right. They need to go to prison. They consciously knew what they were doing.
Yeah. No, they did. And they thankfully they know what they were doing, and they continue to do it anyways. And like, people saw through the bullshit. Again, I think if they wouldn't have overcharged us, America would have been like, all right, whatever, fucking give them their 2-3 months in prison or jail or
Hmm.
whatever.
Which
Um,
I would have taken
yeah,
for me
I
personally.
would
I'm
have.
speaking for myself.
Listen,
Some of these guys and girls did not deserve to go to jail for not even a fucking hour.
yeah,
I'm
like,
not one of those people, but
yeah, like, not like, I'm not guilty, but if, like, they would have been like, I don't know, I don't know what the charge would be, like, conspiracy to, um I don't know, conspiracy to trespass, right? I guess would be the thing. I'd be like, all right, how much time do you want to give me? They've been like 90 days. I would have been like, all right, cool, bro. Here, sign. I would have had to like lie through my teeth and be like, yeah, I did it. I conspired to trespass. Like, and I would have been like, fuck you, just let me out of jail. Um, so yeah, there's a lot that went on with these cases that made people see them for what they are.
well, that to one of the last points I want to make is in your experience, whether it's your own case or other people's cases, because you got to, like all of us got to witness a lot of people go to trial on their case or interact with their lawyers that Enrique Tarrio saw while you were locked up for J6. What is the most egregious, messed up thing you witnessed or heard of from either the prosecution or the judges in a January Sixers case?
In somebody else's case.
Could be, yeah, in
Oh,
any case, but yeah, if you saw
oh,
something in someone else's case, your case, whatever, what do you think one of the most effed up things to occur
oh,
was?
I'll do this in two categories. In my case, one of the most fucked up things is is them getting one of my witnesses after I put him on the witness list, and then 2 days later knock on his door and like tell them that they're going to charge him with obstruction if he testifies in my case.
That's
Um, yeah.
unbelievable, unbelievable.
Um, and I think the other one was in the Stuart Rhodes case, where they kind of like coerced a witness into doing the same thing. Um, and I think that witness tampering was like probably like the worst of the worst. that I saw from the prosecution. And and some of these prosecutors, like I'm going to give you the example. So before I had that meeting with the prosecutors had to fly down to Miami, right? And they were hanging out with my attorneys, and like the lead prosecutor basically stated to him that he knows that the case is bullshit, but it's going to be an easy get because it's DC. Um, so like these prosecutors didn't even believe their own bullshit, right? That they were spewing. They knew what was going on, and they continued to put fucking innocent Americans in prison. So, I think that all of them should be in prison right now for doing that.
N I could not agree with you anymore. There was times where I thought my judge was being rather fair with me to I don't even know if that was the right word, but then when I watched what Friedrich did to Guy Reffitt and some other people, it was horrifying. You
Yeah,
know, Guy had the 15-12 over him, and he was supposed to be coming back to her court to, get less time,
I
and
I
I think
actually
she gave
was
him
that
freaking
trip
more
that I,
time.
that trip that I told you to DC. We picked up a guy. So I was on the way back, and I remember seeing his case that he was going to go get resentenced. I'm like, oh my god, he's going to get resentenced. It's great. I think the judge took off like 3 months.
Yeah, no, I thought
It was like
I
something ridiculous.
yeah, I thought it was something even worse than that. I thought she, like, gave him more time or something. I don't have to look into
Something
it.
of that
It was
sort.
ridiculous. It was so messed up, but, yeah, she wasn't fair, and she was one of the 2, Trump appointees,
Yeah.
McFadden and her, and, they were
I
both pretty
I never
not very fair.
I so I don't think that um it mattered who appointed them, because
Didn't.
the way that these appointments work, or these recommendations for these judges work, it's not the president that like goes in and looks at it, or somebody from the president's team. you know it's a foundation that gets put together and kind of just throws these out and be like, oh, these are the best people. I mean, we saw that with Amy Barrett,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
uh as soon as they picked her, I know it had to be done very fast, but they could have picked a better person. And I remember being like, hey, this chick is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
She shouldn't even be a choice. And I remember getting a lot of pushback. They're like, oh, what are you, anti-Trump? He knows his appointees or whatever. I'm like,
Mm,
no, listen, I love the president. um but his my loyalty to him does not extend to his appointees. It just doesn't.
absolutely.
I'm sorry, it
Yeah,
just doesn't.
no.
You know, and if like you sit there and you simp for them, like did the people that shit on me for shitting on Pam Bondi, like did you simp for Bill Barr? Did you
Right.
simp for Jeff Sessions?
Sure. I
Did you
mean,
simp for any of those people?
we don't
Did you
we don't
simp for
have
Mike Pence?
we don't have 100 fucking examples to remind ourselves that we need to be more involved in appointees.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, we saw what happened with like the number two, with like his number two pick, right? Mike Pence. Uh, I didn't like him from the beginning, but I supported the guy. Um, I thought he was good, but obviously he turned shit. But I did have my criticisms of him, and like people would put like memes up, like he'd be a better president. I remember like a lot of people going, "Oh, Pence is better than Trump. He's more
I
Christian
remember those
or
days.
whatever." I'm not looking for like a holy father in the president. Um, and obviously we don't have one, but we're looking for somebody that's flawed. We're looking for somebody that's been through the ringer, and we're looking for somebody that fights for the American people. And nobody does that better than the president. Period.
You look at the Bible, and I can show you 100 examples of very flawed men being utilized to do God's work,
Yeah.
and I only remember one person in the Bible who was not flawed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's another story of another conversation in of itself. So can I, with what you're willing to discuss and disclose, can we bring up real quick? You just recently had a meeting or met somebody,
Yeah.
and I can just graze past that.
No,
I
you
don't
can.
have to go
Yeah,
there.
I'll answer what I could.
Okay, so you got a chance to meet the president at Mar-Lago,
Mhm.
and you were with your very beautiful and lovely mother. The two of
You
you
hitting on
got
my
to.
mom?
Yes. Um, we you got a chance to talk with him and meet with him, and from what you can disclose, and it's going to bring me into my last and final question for you. What you can disclose, how did that conversation go? What was your impressions of the president, his attentiveness uh to the situation of the J6ers, and what was your opinion when you met him, and how do you feel?
So just so people know, if you ever meet the president and you ever have a conversation with him, it's the etiquette is that you don't speak about what you and the president talked about, no matter what it is. There are things that he did tell me, that I could speak to. One is he thanked the J6ers. He said that given the chance, he'd do it again, right? He'd pardon us again. Um, and he's very knowledgeable in all things J6. I thought for my entire time being a Trump supporter, I thought like, he kind of gets a little bit of information and kind of lets people decide. No, he knew names. He knew the names of my four guys. He knew Dominic's name. He knew Ethan's name. He knew Zach's name. He knew Ethan's name. He called him the big Ethan. He called him the big guy. Um, and he's very knowledgeable with names and what happens. And he's very um he knows that we need to be fixed, like we need to be made whole again. But I did have a sit down conversation about 10 minutes with him, and it was enlightening. It wasn't like meeting somebody pompous, somebody that um has the air of arrogance. He was very humble. He was very, it was like talking to your neighbor. So, but he he's a good dude, man, and
Yeah.
he understands the plight of J6ers.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's going to bring me to my final question. I want your opinion, and I guess I don't know if bias is the right word, but you have a lot of love for the other four guys. They're your brothers,
Of
and
course.
you guys went through. You guys were forged in fire to get that term is probably the closest thing to literal as far as a human experience is concerned. We know that Pizzola, Biggs, Nordine, and Rail are commuted. They're not pardoned.
Yes.
Um, and how do you see this playing out? Because these guys, most of them are veterans. Most of them, all of them are good guys. None of them did anything wrong that day. How do you see this playing out for those four in particular?
Um, I think they're going to be fine. I think I think that we'll see pardons coming for not only them four, but the oath keepers. I think that we're going to see that. Is it very soon? I don't know, but I know that we're going to see them. I won't. I'll just. How about that? I'll just leave it at that. They do need pardons. They have gone through hell, and we did ride through with fiery steeds through the gates of hell and back together. But I do think that their pardons are gonna happen.
Sure. Last thing, Pam Bondi. I think that you have some animosity right now uh, towards her. Do you think that there's a better option for Attorney General, and do you see her being replaced at any point in time?
I wouldn't say animosity. I think criticism of somebody that has done nothing, right? And we're gonna get like these little spurts of she did one little thing, she arrested one little person, and I think she's been probably the most ineffective attorney general that the president has had to date. I think Bill Barr has did a better job than she did. I think Jeff Sessions did a better job than she did.
Wow.
I think that yes, I think that there is no other solution but having her step down as attorney general before she gets fired. I honestly believe that she will be fired if she does not step down soon. Um, we saw this. I mean, look, the perfect thing that happened is James Comey pretty much posting to it that he was gonna like the 86-47 thing. And we're not gonna see anything come from that. We're not going to see anything come. If that was here, I'll go a step further. Merrick Garland was a more effective attorney general than Pam Bondi. Merrick Garland would have had this person already in prison and probably squealing on his buddies.
If he
Uh,
had if he had an illegitimate son in Uganda, Merrick Garland would have had the kid arrested by now.
yeah, no, of course, it would definitely it would have already happened. So she needs to resign. She needs to and then the president needs to pick somebody that's actually MAGA to be in that attorney general's position. I'm from Florida. You're from Florida too. People think that like because Pam Bondi's from Florida and because she we have DeSantis, which has been an amazing governor. He was an idiot for running against the president, but he has been an amazing governor.
Mhm.
That somehow she's free of any criticism. Bullshit. She after the Parkland shooting, she enacted these red flag laws. She's has not been the most conservative person in the world. Epstein was here in Florida.
That's a good point. West
He
Palm
could have been
Beach.
arrested before.
Yeah.
She was attorney general. That didn't happen. So as a Floridian, she sucked. Um, James is our current AG. I think he's doing an amazing job. I have some criticisms, but for the most part, he's been doing his shit. Uh, I think the person that would have been great for attorney general is now currently running in Texas for Senate. I think
Paxton,
I think Paxton would have been fucking great.
phenomenal. I would have loved Matt Gaetz. I don't care what anyone
Matt
says.
Gaetz would have been great. I just think that he did have that hurdle in the Senate.
Yeah, but
Because
the hurdle.
He's so MAGA. He like
Yeah, but that's what
crashed.
we need. The frat boy that don't give a shit about making enemies. That's what we need. And his hurdle was actually Republicans, the
Yes.
conservatives that were
Yeah,
lined against him
well, let's not
because
say conservative.
yeah, exactly. Well, touche. But that's the problem that we all have. We see fucking Jamal Bowman pull a fire alarm and Democrats rally around him to support and protect him. But if Santos lies about something, you've got conservatives rallying to fucking put a knife in his back, and it's pathetic.
Yeah.
Pathetic.
And Santos will tell you himself he did something bad or whatever. He doesn't deserve the fucking 7
show me
years
one fucking person in there that did something good. Some of the most, I mean, there's like, I think there's like 14 or 15 sitting members of Congress that have domestic violence charges and convictions right now, mostly on the Democrat side. They can eat shit because I'll tell you what Santos also did. 98% MAGA first voting record. Okay. So I don't even think Matt Gaetz can say that. So that's what something Santos did.
I mean, put Attorney General Enrique Tarrio in there, and I guarantee you we're going to have to start upping the budget of the BOP to be able to house all these fucking liberals.
I would be back in federal prison in like a month because I'd be asking you for favors and shit.
Yeah. We'll get you a pardon.
Thank you. All right.
But for the most part, I think a fucking cold piece of garlic bread can do a better job than Pam Bondi at the time. We'll probably see like a couple of arrests. I'm not saying that she won't have a couple of arrests under her belt because I think that she knows that her time's ticking and she's going to need to find somebody to fucking arrest so we could prolong this. But at the end of the day, she's not going to do anything. Mark my words. Mark my words. Those people that are like Pam Bondi simps, mark my words. The president is going to think that she did a shitty job.
No,
the president himself is going to think that she did a shitty job. He's a president. He's going to back his opponent. Like yesterday with the whole prostate cancer, when everybody was going at Joe Biden for it, right? Including myself. He showed that he was of higher character. And he's like, look, I'm sorry this happened to you. Which is the way that you're supposed to I guess, react to this. Like I have a negative reaction to it because I'm not I'm not going to do that, because
Right.
of what was done to me personally. To me, it's personal, right? So um, I think that I think she should step down.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's hope that something goes right in that department, because she does hold the key to a lot getting done as far as the America First agenda is concerned, and
Yeah,
I
no,
don't see that
it's the
key
main
being
thing.
turned very fast. And
Like,
there's
people didn't
there's
vote for cheaper eggs. People voted for retribution.
yeah.
That's what that's what the MAGA base voted for. The base voted for retribution,
If there's
accountability.
no consequences, they're not going to fear their actions. They're going to continue to do what they do. And that's what communists do when they take power. They test it. They see what they can get away with. They take meticulous notes, and they find out how much they can push it the next time when
Yeah,
they're in office. So they know
yeah,
they're not sleeping at the wheel. They're taking notes, and they're rechambering and recoiling.
yeah. And not all, not all. Look, a perfect example is Dan Bongino and Cash Patel, right? I could still be patient with them. I think they made a mistake by um appointing Steve Jensen like the fucking warlord, the FBI warlord, when it came to J6, appointing him to the Washington field office. I thought that was stupid. It's a stupid decision, but I do think that they are doing their job, per se. I think, look, I could criticize and still be like, hey, look, I don't think that they should step down. Like they said, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, you know, uh,
Yeah.
that didn't happen. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
Right.
But I could still be like, okay, well, I support you, but I think that you're wrong on this front. It's not the same. It's not the same when you're talking about Pam Bondi. It isn't.
You're
I
absolutely
think
right. Yeah.
Christy Noam's doing a great job.
Hmm.
Obviously she does a lot of makeup and does all these photo shoots, and that's fine with me. You could do all the photo shoots. I think she's doing a phenomenal job with
I mean, if
deportations.
Barbie did have a Homeland Security version, it would be
Yeah,
Christy Noem.
exactly.
Yeah, so
So, but I can't hit her up for trying to look good. I try to look good for
she does a
pictures.
good job.
She does a good job of looking good,
Yeah.
and she does a good job as the appointee to head the DHS. So, like, it's not like I'm shitting on every single appointment that the president have. I'm shitting on Pam Bondi.
Fucking politicians and appointees are rental cars.
Mhm.
That's all they are. We use them to do the job and get the people where they need to go. And if they fucking fail at doing it, there's no reason to rent them anymore. They're
Yeah.
garbage. They need to go.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, that is even that goes to President Trump. If President Trump turned on his own America First agenda, I would turn on President Trump. Give me a reason to criticize him, and I'll criticize him. But
I'm a
the
little different.
promises made and promises kept. I mean, the guy's fucking bats 1,000 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We haven't had anyone even come close to the type of integrity that Donald Trump has as far as a
Yeah.
president or even a politician for that matter. So
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think the guy deserves any criticism from his surrounding peers in
Yeah.
Capitol Hill. Last thing, Mike Fanone. Uh, what is your issue with Mike Fanone? Why do you think that he is his testimony and what he stands for and represents? Why do you feel that that it's not legitimate, that he's not very being an authentic person? If that is your take on Mike to begin with.
It's definitely that he's not being an authentic person. Besides perjury, right? I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing. I think that he got pushback. I feel bad. I'm not going to say feel bad. I guess that's too strong. But I don't think that he should have been fucked up. In any way, right? I think he exaggerated on it. Um, and I think that what he did is he grifted off of it, and then his own police department turned on him. His own like when you're a cop, it's a brotherhood, right? His own brothers turned on him, and that's why he buried his feet in the sand and he said, "No, this is where I'm at," and I think it made him a piece of shit. Um, that's why he's hiding in like a cabin in West Virginia now because he can't
I
show his
heard that.
face anywhere. He can't show his face anywhere, and he thought that he would walk around and nobody was going to challenge him, and he had during CPAC, I think he had a rude awakening with somebody that um called him out. You
Yeah.
know, and you know, I wasn't gonna like physically assault the guy. That was never gonna be an option. Um, he got shouted down like anybody should, like any public figure should when they fuck up. Um, and I'm glad that he has to live his life in hiding now, because it's called shame.
Shaming works. That's what
Shaming
people need
works.
to understand, and especially in the political realm, shaming works. They deserve to be shamed. The leftist and their behavior, from their policies, from the transgender studies for children to their insane beliefs, to everything. If we don't shame them as a society, then they're going to continue to do what they do. So I definitely commend you on that, and I encourage more people to start shaming the idiocy on
Yeah.
the left, the Jesse Smollett's, the crap that the leftists pull. Shame it every chance you get.
And I'll tell you what, one thing where I don't cross the line, like if he was with like his family at dinner or whatever, like
Sure.
wouldn't have yelled at him. You know, the
Yeah.
guys with
Well,
his family does not deserve that.
there's things
He
that
was,
separate the right and the left, aren't there?
yeah, there's a couple of things, you know, like I do believe in fighting fire with fire. But I wouldn't, if he was at a restaurant with his family,
Sure.
I'd never even think about fucking with him. But he was by himself, surrounded by security with two other fucking um lying and crying cops, you
Harry
know,
Dunn.
and whatever, he got what he deserved.
Sure.
Ran into the elevator. There's like an angle that's funny as hell that I've been looking for a long time. And it's like an angle, like I'm looking at him and the elevator's right in front of me. And there's an angle that comes from like the right. And like it kind of shows inside the elevator. So he goes in the elevator and the person that's in the elevator is like smashing the closed door button, trying to fucking uh get the door to close as fast as possible, which is hilarious. But he got what he deserved.
Absolutely. What is your mission now? You're a free man. You're pardoned by the U.S. president, and what is your main goal as far as what you're up to in life?
I think it's uplifting other people, and raising our voices collectively as a group. And I think that like the way that you save the West is like replicating yourself, you know, like having people, you know, with your views that you see that has your views, and like helping them create. And I think that's one of the reasons why we started the War Boys Studios, and it's kind of to give those people a voice, um and kind of like share that platform. Plus it's very entertaining. um and your show's done actually amazing on our network. I think that my goal in life is to change the culture. And I think people think that you're going to legislate your problems away, and I think that they're going to find out that that's impossible. I think that if we fight the culture war at their level, I think we'll win, which is the reason why we won in 2016. It's the reason why we won in 2020, and is the reason why we won in 2024. It's because we have history on our side. We have the morals on our side. We have um, Donald Trump on our side, and then most importantly, that we have God on our side.
God. Yep.
And I think that to me that's been my goal. You know, um, coming out of prison, I wanted to be a hermit. You know, right before I got out, I wanted to be a hermit. I wanted to like just like buy a piece of property in the mountains of fucking like Montana, and like build a solar powered self sustained home, you know, and just get away from everybody. And you know, I've done the opposite because it's my passion.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep doing that. It's been great so far. Um, and we're just gonna our voices are gonna grow.
Absolutely. Well, on a solar panel note, did you see that story that Reuters reported about the communication devices and the solar panels that we just purchased from China?
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it
That's
makes them overheat or some shit, and the batteries.
Well, they just discovered that's what their first assumption was, and it did do that. But now they found that it can communicate back to another responder back to China's mainland.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
they're reassessing the whole operation now. But
I'm
yeah,
I'm a green energy guy. I do believe in solar. I do believe in alternate energy, but I think that there has to be a way to get there. You can't
I
just snap your fingers and make it happen.
I can
I
see
think
it now. The headlines: Enrique Tarrio
those
agrees with
green,
green energy. He's
yeah,
Antifa.
you have, not to get into like the nerdum, but you have like this power that's pretty much infinite, right? And it bounces off the ground. And if you could capture that, that is the best case scenario. And it's not like a green thing. It's not like a global warming thing to me. It's energy independence, right?
Sure,
And I think that we should. I'm not big on subsidies, but we're in a trade war right now. We've been in a trade war. It's not like a new thing.
hmm,
Um, and I think that manufacturing solar here in the United States, I think that they should get some subsidies, because energy is very important. And I think that solar is the future, right? It is the future if it's done right. If you have like a Joe Biden or a Kamala Harris that comes in and tries to force it, ram it down our throats, that's how you fuck up the economy like they did, right? So I think that incentives to go, I hate that I keep using the word green, but the incentives to go solar and to get alternate forms of energy is really important because we do depend too much on oil, right? And even though we can pump our own oil, I think at one day it will run out. Will it be something soon? No, but if we start positioning ourselves to be the world leader or have complete energy independence off the grid, I think that that's something that we should be looking into.
sure. But it goes back to America first.
Yeah,
Being energy independent in the future, thinking about the future right now.
of course.
It's not much different than your retirement. You
Yeah,
think about it and you make sacrifices when you're young, so when you're older, you're comfortable. So
yeah. And then using all forms of energy, coal, oil, natural gas, like those things are very important to the future, for that future.
sure.
So I think, with this president, I think we're going to see, we're going to get very, very close to that. Can we maintain it? You know,
Yeah, well,
can we
that's
maintain it?
that's going to be where the first step is winning those midterms. I'll tell
Yeah,
you
of
that
course.
much. So, all right, well, ladies and gentlemen, Enrique, I appreciate you coming by and representing for we the J6ers.com. You're a featured speaker, and we hope that's our mission, is to get out there and tell the stories that have been suppressed for the last several years. So again, thanks for coming on, broski. I'll
Thank you.
give you a holler a little later, brother. A
All right.
hooroo, and
Uru.
God bless the United States. Well, that was Enrique Tarrio for we the J6ers.com. And he is, again, one of our featured speakers. I don't think anybody can give a better perspective of political bias than Enrique himself, considering he pretty much has become the poster child for it, without wanting to. I can tell you that much. So you see the social media handles down there. We can't do it without you. Truth Social, Getter, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube at We the J6ers. Thank you all very much for taking the time to look at this interview. God bless the United States of America. Check out the website, wethej6ers.com, for any of your conservative groups or meetings. Hit that website up and book a real political prisoner, former speaker for your groups and your chats, to give you real perspective of what it was like for J6er and their experience fighting the Garland Department of Justice. God bless you all. Thank you very much for being here. WeTheJ6ers.com.